Hello, welcome to the Blog of the Net podcast with me, Dan Wilkes, and someone should be with me.
That's me. That's Rich Clark. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You're not a guest. You're with me.
No? Okay, well, that's good. You were introducing and I thought I'd treat myself.
Well, we'll mix it up.
Guest
Sometimes
one.
you can introduce it.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, we're here. We're back.
Yeah.
We had a good run in the summer. We've had a nice break, recharged the batteries. We've had a good pre-season and we're ready to go again. I like it.
So let's talk about today's show. What are we covering today, Richard?
Well, we're going to look at the European Cup format. So the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League. They've obviously revamped it.
That's right. And we're also going to look at Rodri's recent comments about potentially going on strike.
And finally, we're going to cover the growth, the popularity and the impact that EA's FIFA series, now known as FC25, which has dropped recently. We're going to look at the impact on that has had on football.
Yes, we are. So let's start, shall we, with UEFA's Cup competition new formats, shall we? We had round one of Champions League, Europa Cup and the Conference League. What did you think about them to start off with?
Okay, so it's really early days, so let's be careful not to judge too soon. But so far, it has been as my intuition sort of thought, which is I'm not sure how much it works when you've got people playing in these different groups or pools, whatever you want to call it. They're not even playing in different groups, but you're all in the same league. But you don't play the same fixtures as anyone else. I think it's really difficult for fans to buy in and work out which games are important, which games have real jeopardy in them. And at the moment, it's going to take a little while. And we're going to need an additional 2 of these to really sort of judge and understand how many points do you need to go through. Is it a problem if you finish 9th to 24th in this league? Does it matter if you don't finish in the top 8 and go through automatically? There's all these questions that I think fans just don't really know the answer to, and it seems to me like people want to be on board with the Champions League because they like the Champions League and what it offers. But I remember the talk when the Nations League came out, the conversation was, no one even knows what it is. It's like that competition could not have been simpler. And yet for this one, I really feel like I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out when we get to the last game of the leagues. And like you say, those fixtures, they're going to be some random fixtures that just don't matter. What's the cut-off? 24, isn't it? And then you do a playoff.
Yeah, so top 8 go through automatically. And then 9 to 24 do a playoff to make up the final 8 spots. And then into a last 16 and a knockout, 2 legs, as before. It just feels like we had it in the World Cup 40 plus years ago where they didn't kick off at the same time in the final group game. And teams they didn't have anything to play for. They were kind of throwing it. And other teams that did have something to play for were going for it. And it wasn't fair on the teams that were sort of watching on. And I feel, even though that's not going to be a problem in terms of kick-off times for this, there are just teams going to be through with 2 or 3 games to go or out with 2 or 3 games to go, which is so much less likely in a 4-team group format, mini groups that they had before. And it just feels that there's going to be some wastage and some farce where one team has a much better chance of going through than an opponent playing in another match because of the fixture.
Yeah, and I guess the odds on 2 teams playing themselves, each other, where they're both like neck and neck to go through, it's going to be more unlikely.
Yeah, really slim compared to, in a 4-team format. There's a good chance you end up playing a head-to-head in the final game. And I didn't like the rule before where the best third place team or anyone who finished third dropped down into the Europa League from the Champions League. I didn't like that. They've got rid of that. That's good. However, what that actually did do was make sure that games were really important right to the end, because if you're in 4th place, you've still got something, even though you can't finish 2nd. And so there was some integrity there. And I think we might lose some integrity towards the end of this league stage. And that's really not what we want. The only thing I would say is that UEFA, they're not married to a format. They have changed the format of things a lot when need be. I think when we think about the European Cup and the Champions League, we think of two different formats. The old style European Cup, straight knockout, and then the Champions League, group phase into knockout. And actually, there have been a lot of iterations of this where they've tweaked it, they've changed it lots and lots of times in order to get it to where they want to be. So I'll just run you through a few examples. So the first year that it ever ran in 1955, going some way back here, I know you love the historical stuff, 16 teams, straight knockout, fine. Between 1956 and 1963, they wanted to try and add more teams, and they had a little preliminary, then last 16. And by the time we got to 1963, there were up to 30 teams getting involved in this. Then between 1963 and 1991, so running nearly 30 years, they basically had 32 teams in the competition. Sometimes they had 30 where teams dropped out, but it was a last 32 straight knockout. Finally, after nearly 10 years, they got a format that they really liked and they stuck with it. Then the year before the Champions League started, in 91 to 93, they experimented with a little knockouts or like a prelim, first and second round, and then a group stage. And interestingly, the first ever Champions League, they had a group phase, and then it was just the top two went straight into a final. So that's quite fun. And then eventually, they settled on a format that they liked. Not before they had two group stages at the turn of the century. That was a lot of madness. You win one group stage, you have to go into another one, and then it's a knockout phase. But for nearly 20 years, 2003 to 2024, 32 teams, 13 matches to win you the competition, and it was 8 groups of 4, then into knockout. And again, they did nearly 20 years of that format. The games have gone up, and then they kind of crept back down, but they're going up again. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah. So why have they changed it? Let's look at that. So this is what UEFA are saying with the new format. They're saying the new format will introduce a better competitive balance between all the teams, with a possibility for each team to play opponents of a similar competitive level throughout the league phase. Every game counts. So that's their sort of jargon for why they're going for it.
But that's where I completely disagree. Not every game does count.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the fixtures before a match day or the results following, you do just look and go, yeah, what does that mean? Like you didn't win. You've got 7 more games to finish 24th. And it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter where you finish. And top 8, obviously, you don't have to play as many games. Fine.
Like they're basically doing it because they get more teams, more games, and they're saying that will help the clubs more, but really it's so they can make more money out of it. I think it also means they can be more flexible with the schedule, and we've seen that Thursday night does not necessarily mean Channel 5 Europa League, does it, anymore?
Yeah, I mean, Channel 5 lost the rights to Europa League
no, but the chant
about 20 years ago. Yeah, the chant stays. The chant's not gone anywhere. Yeah, it has made it more flexible. You've now got domestic cup matches clashing with European football, which was a big no-no before. UEFA were dead against that. They really didn't like any domestic cup or league games being played on the same night. And now that's just an inevitability because they've got to run until January. There's more games. And as mentioned, there's that playoff phase as well.
Maybe they've done it as well where they know they can have like their main fixture on each night. The way that they're broadcasting these games seems to be very much Champions League night. This is the main game, and this is the other games that are on. But you can watch whatever you want to watch, and it's
definitely. And they've experimented a little bit with that in the last few years with the 5:45 kickoff, which is again for a bit of extra exposure and the television, isn't it? So, more games on telly. Of course, that's going to be good. I don't know. If you had to say whether this is better, worse, or you don't know, what would you say?
I think it's worse.
Yeah, I think it's worse. I really don't. I don't mind change, and I'm not one of those people that just stick with it, just blindly, or I'm opposed to mixing something up if you can make it better. But I don't think this is better.
I think generally people don't care enough, do they? Like, even though it's a completely different format and the football may change, they would care more if they changed the Champions League anthem.
Well, let's come on to that, actually, because I agree. I don't think many people do care that much because in the end, it comes down to a last 16, two-legged knockout phase, and that will be the same as the Champions League we know, and it will probably produce some great ties and similar stuff. But people probably would care if you change the Champions League theme, and they kind of have. They've added a little bit of jazz. They've, a little bit of accompaniment. They have. I think their official line is they've updated it. But yeah, I think more people are bothered about that. I didn't think it was different enough to care.
No. Okay, well, I guess we have to watch this space and see what we think once we get to the end of this big giant table that Noel talked about. We did say how there are more games. And that leads us to our next segment, which we'll hear about after this interlude. And it is an interlude. Okay, so after we heard about more games for Premier League footballers and, well, all European footballers, really, if they do really well, Rodri was quoted the other day for saying, "We're close to strike action," Rodri told reporters during a press conference previewing City's clash with Inter Milan. "It's the general opinion of the players, and if it keeps this way, we'll have no other option." So, what do you think about footballers striking? The man in the pub, not a specific man, would argue that they should not moan as they are footballers and they would love to be playing football for a living. Where do you stand on this? Do you think they're being over the top or do they have a point?
They make too much money, Wilkesy, don't they? Eh?
Yeah, kicking a ball around.
Yeah. Yeah, the argument I always have with how much money they earn is they earn that much money because there's that much money in football. We're not going to get onto that. Well, maybe we are, but do I sympathise with it? I'm not sure. How close do you think they really are to striking? He says we're close. Feels like an idle threat. I don't know.
I think they are. I think the PFA are feeling that they're being ignored. I think what's happened is with this new European format, it has increased the games, and they're saying they shouldn't be playing 70 games. They should be playing more 50 to 60 games. So I feel like if there was another change, like a format change, and there was more games, then I think then it would get quite serious.
Well, let's talk about games played then, shall we?
Yeah.
There have been rumours and talks of strikes in the past, but I've just got some historical data on how many games, like some of the big clubs on their big runs have played. So let's look at Manchester City's 22-23 treble season. They played 61 matches. They could have played 64 if they'd gone further in the League Cup. Otherwise, they were almost maxed out. So 61 matches they played. Chelsea in 2012-13, so that's the following year after they won the Champions League, and they then went on to win the Europa League. So they went far in that. They were in the Club World Cup. They played 69 matches that season, so even more than City did. Could have played 71. Man United in the treble season, 63 matches, so just slightly more than City. And then you go all the way back to Liverpool in the 70s when they almost won a treble, lost out in the FA Cup final, but 76-77's Liverpool team, 62 matches. Now here's the interesting with this one. They could have played 77 matches, and that's because back in those days, the FA Cup and the League Cup, they didn't ever go to extra time. They would just keep replaying it.
Yeah.
So the maximum number of FA Cup ties a team could play to win in those days was 12 instead of the usual 6, and 13 in the League Cup if you just keep replaying and keep replaying, which is obviously very unlikely and unusual. But there have been instances where teams end up in replays and you have a backlog of fixtures. Now, that's been changed really only in the last 30 years. So the number of matches that the domestic season manages has dropped. We see that with City's number. They played nearly every game they could have played, and it's just lower than some of those historical sides. But when we compare City's treble team, who, as a reminder, played 61 matches, to Bayer Leverkusen's team from last season, who won their league, won their cup, and got to the Europa League final. So, had a treble all but on. They only played 53 games. So it's 8 less games than City played, and they went further in competitions. But the difference is Germany and other leagues, they don't play as many league games. They only play 34 league games, and they only have one domestic cup. And I think that's potentially a problem, particularly that foreign footballers feel with English football, is that why the hell do you have 2 cup competitions? This just doesn't feel necessary. Although, to be fair, in Rodri's case, he is rested in one of those cup competitions most of the time. Nonetheless, it's there.
I think that brings me to my next point about, well, who is to blame for this? You know, the governing bodies, be it the Premier League, be it UEFA, or should he be annoyed at his employee, Man City? And is it bad management? You know, there's a club there that can rotate players, that can decide if you play or not. Should they just be better at managing? Especially when you've got things like 5 substitutions, bigger squads, bigger facilities.
Have you just indirectly said that you think Pep Guardiola should be a better manager?
Yes, I have, yeah. In terms of this, yeah. Okay, he gets results, but is he nice? You know, say he's the manager at Tesco's, he might get results, but, you know. He's been Gross of the Year 4 years running, but the staff hate him. The staff are overworked.
Yeah, it doesn't give good shifts. Yeah, okay, so I think there's 2 things going on. I think Rodri really should be directing his disappointment and frustration at the governing body, which I think ultimately he is. However, from there is down to clubs to manage. But this is such a cutthroat business where results matter and money matters and all the rest of it, all the things that we know, that you can't really afford to be resting players where you don't absolutely necessarily need to do it. So it stands to reason that an important player like Rodri, and I think he's a really good example of the person saying this, because I think most people would agree he is, if he isn't he's one of the best midfielders in the world, and he's an important player for club and country. So I think it does hit home when he puts it out there. But
he's only one of the few that actually can say something like this. Say it's someone who isn't definitely going to start. A manager might look at that and go, hang on, is your head in it? Do you want to be playing?
There's no doubt in his professionalism and his dedication is there and what he's won. So yeah, it feels like he can say it. Generally, the number of games at the most a player will play is between 65 and, what's the top here, 73. Those playing in the 70s, it is a lot in a season. The player that has played the most in that time, in a tournament year, 1983 to 1984, played for Liverpool, was the Bolton assistant manager. I think he managed Bolton as well. Do you know who it is?
Little Sam.
There we go. Sammy Lee, yeah. Very good. 74 games he played in 83-84. That's the most of anyone in the last, dating all the way back to 50 years. Can you tell me which player appears twice on a list of players to play the most games in a single season in the last 4 years? Someone's appeared twice.
4 years?
Yeah, in the last 4 years.
Oh, Bruno Fernandes.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. He does not miss a game.
72 games in the 2021 season and 70 games in 22-23. He's barely missing. He plays a lot of football. But going all the way back, these are, in the 69-70 recently, Julian Alvarez played the most last season, 69 games. But you go back to 03-04, Luis Figo played 71 games. 11-12, Messi played 71 games. Roberto Carlos, 99-2000, played 72 games. And then actually, in the 80s and 90s, the most is 66. 93-94, Dennis Irwin. So there you go. And this is world football, so this could be absolutely anyone, anywhere. But as we know, Europe plays a lot more than elsewhere.
I guess we do have to bear in mind that just because it was worse than it used to be doesn't mean it's right now. But I do feel there is a point there, because the game back then, they would say now that it's a lot more intense, it's a lot more athletic, it's more of a strain on the body. But I think they do have the privileges now of a whole sort of medical team behind them that can condition them, analyse their bodies, know when they need rests.
Yep.
They're playing on better pitches. They're not getting...
you're absolutely
the tackling isn't the same.
Yeah, I think the sports science and the advances in football and technology to assist players, look, I don't know whether it's too cheap to say that it levels it out, but I think there's something to be said. Looking at the data, there is a dip in the 80s and 90s compared to 70s and now. Like, some players are playing a little bit more, so maybe we should be sympathetic, but I don't know. Yeah,
The history of striking in the past from PFA in England. I don't know if you remember in 2001, and the PFA threatened to strike over TV revenue money. It's always money, isn't it, with football? But that didn't actually happen. It did happen in 1956 when television first started broadcasting football, and they did strike over TV revenue. And there was also a strike. Actually, I don't think they did strike in the end, but Jimmy Hill, who will come up a lot, I reckon, in this pod.
I think we need a deep dive on Jimmy Hill. The guy did some crazy and weird and wonderful things in football.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, maybe next week we can just do Jimmy Hill.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But yeah, in 1960, he abolished the wage limit from £20 a week.
Yeah. And so did players go on strike then, or were they going to go on strike?
I think he sorted out just in time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think it would be a huge shock if there was a big player strike.
Oh, definitely. I don't think this is going to happen in the next few years, but...
And on top of that, I think it would be a big shock if we saw a dramatic change to the football calendar. So I'm not sure who's going to budge first here.
Yeah, I don't know either, really. I think the most we'll see is a Christmas break. That's the only thing I could see happening.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, other countries do that.
Yeah.
Germany is one of them, and but at least France, Italy, and Spain all have some sort of break. They don't play through like England does. So yeah, that might be it.
We should mention as well that clubs again don't help themselves because of their pre-season tours
and the travel as well. And they are just friendlies, but you've got to say that these friendlies have got a bit more pressure. Not a lot of pressure, don't get me wrong, but a little bit more when they're televised around the world and people are paying a bit more attention to pre-season now. Where do you draw the line? How many more games does it become unacceptable? Are there thresholds here, or do we just not like it?
I think it's at its max. I think, yeah, I kind of agree with that.
I take his point. I don't see a strike happening. I don't see the football calendar changing. And look, I hate to make light of it, but Roger's got some time off now anyway. Maybe he can have a reflect on how much he likes football.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that, shall we? Okay, now we're going to talk about EA Sports, in particular the EAFC series, which was previously known as FIFA, and its sort of impact on football and how that's changed. Have you bought EA Football Club 25 yet?
I do not have the most recent. I am a keen FIFA player historically, but no, I'm yet to indulge in the most recent. Have you?
I have got it. Yeah, I'm playing it a lot. But I want to talk about just how big it is, because I don't think people realise, because I think video games get sort of a bad name and ignored. So do you want to guess at how much money EA Sports made from FIFA 2023? This is worldwide.
Oh, right. Okay, so it's revenue. Apologies.
Revenue, yeah.
I have absolutely no idea. So a number is in my head, and out it comes my mouth. Okay. $200 million.
No. It made...
Higher or lower?
It's a lot higher.
Really?
Yeah. So it made $1.6 billion.
Whoa.
And that's not included Ultimate Team, which is add-ons and subscriptions.
Wow.
And that's another 1.6 billion.
What, they double up on...
Yeah, well, to put into... Yeah, so we're looking at... So the biggest selling movie ever, I think, is Avatar. And that's sort of hitting around $1 billion. And EA Sports are doing this every year at the moment. Sky basically gets $6.7 billion for having the Premier League rights over 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's not far off it in terms of that. But I think that's sort of the point, is that FIFA, as I'm going to call it, because that's how I know it, it's sort of integrated within football now. I think when we first started playing it, and also it's the same age as the Premier League. It started at the same time. And at first, you wouldn't even call it a companion sort of thing. It was just a video game, and it wasn't anywhere near what we were watching. But as the years went on, it started to mimic what we were watching, and it was getting more and more realistic. But I think now we're in an age where it doesn't even try and be realistic anymore. If anything, football's trying to copy FIFA.
Yeah, that's right. You do see it. You see it when the camera runs onto the pitch after a game and the players, walk in and they blur out the background. And that's something that EA were doing. They've taken that from that. Yeah, that's right. It's amazing to see the production copied that way around now. As you say, that just shows its influence. Yeah, I think the fact that when we were growing up, knew what it was like to live in a world that didn't have video games.
Yeah.
But now most people have never seen a world like that. So it's just ingrained in society a bit more, isn't it? So whereas it wouldn't have been a companion piece before, it possibly is for young football fans now. Do you remember the first time you played a FIFA game?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably around 94. I don't think I played the first one, but I remember when it had commentary on it, and my mind was blown. It wasn't saying actual players, but I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, so I had the first FIFA International Soccer on the PC, and I remember when FIFA 97 came out. I didn't have it, but a friend had it on the PlayStation. That was the moment, I think, where it was properly, 3D, and the commentary where they're saying names and talking about character traits, and it was like, wow. And then year on year, you really saw like a real...
I think where it's really important is how it's getting sort of a younger generation into football. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting, and this is a problem that lots of things have at the moment with, is getting that younger crowd in. You think about when you put on football, they don't want to watch 90 minutes of football with their attention span. You look at the pundits we have, they want to watch streamers. They don't want to watch someone who's won the treble in 99 talk about it. And I've got a few interesting stats.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, go for it.
So America, they're having another go at trying to make soccer popular in America, obviously with the World Cup looming. And EA have said that the impact of soccer in the USA, they say 50% of EA Sports FIFA players are more interested in pro soccer after playing the game.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's the
that's a lot. If you can retain people every time they play it, that
and it's the second biggest sports game in the US after Madden. Which is really good, saying it's the fifth most popular sport. And then in terms of sponsors, it's kind of like, if you're sponsoring a team's kit, it's also going to be on FIFA.
Yeah.
So you're just nailing it from a sponsorship point of view.
Yeah.
So that's basically my point, is just how much of a driving influence FIFA's becoming, and it's massive.
So are more people watching football or playing FIFA, or EA? We should call it FC,
It's tricky to know, because no one likes to really unveil viewing stats for football. I think people are playing FIFA just as much as they're watching football, if not more. They're definitely more interactive with it.
Well, also, define watching football.
Yeah, of course.
Does that mean, to qualify for quote unquote watching football, does that mean you have to watch a 90-minute game a week? Is watching match of the day okay? I mean, you're across the Premier League, you're on top of it. Or can you just stream on your phone? So I think if we understood, I think like hours or minutes consumed would be the most fascinating thing to look at. We don't have it, but it'd be amazing to see it. I think if you were to say that you have to watch a 90-minute game a week to be a football watcher, I think there's a very good chance you've got more FC players.
But it's also the attention. You can have football on in the background and you're doing 10 other things at the same time. But in FIFA, your 100% concentration is on it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a fun stat if you want it. The 4 highest rated players in FIFA history.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. How many could you name? Have a go.
Okay. Let's go Ronaldo and Messi.
Cristiano Ronaldo and Leo Messi are not on this.
Are they not?
Nowhere near. They wouldn't make the top 25 top-rated FIFA players of all time.
Four, I think.
The max I think they've ever been is about 91 or 92.
Okay, so we must be going back to the old ones where they just max it out. It'd be someone like original Verona.
Is correct. He's fourth on the list. He was rated 98 on FIFA 2004. The other three all come from FIFA 96.
Really?
Yeah.
I reckon it'd be like Rivaldo or
Bit
Romario.
early, but good guess. Romario is correct.
One
of them is Italian and my hero.
Roberto Di Baggio.
Correct. But the last one was Bebeto. Historically, all the best players, highest rated players, they all came from 96 to 2004. Yeah. The current greats getting nowhere near it.
Yeah. Always accurate. Okay. Can you tell me who's appeared on the FIFA cover the most?
Yes.
For a UK market.
Yes.
Top 5.
Okay. Messi.
He is there at number 3. Been on it 4 times.
Rooney.
He's number 1. 7 times.
Ronaldinho.
He is number 2. 5 times.
So I'm missing 4 and 5.
Yeah. And it's a joint 5.
How many appearances?
Number 4, 3 times. And number 5 is a joint one with 2.
Oh, Theo Walcott?
No.
Just on 1. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Jack Wilshere?
Nope, he's not on there.
What about... Oh, Mbappe?
Yep, number 4 in FIFA 21, 22 and 23.
Yeah. And...
So number 5 is joint.
English... Is it an English player?
No.
Oh,
Both
okay.
played in the Premier League at the same time. 2002 and 2004 and FIFA 18 and 19.
FIFA 2004 was Roberto Carlos? No, not Henri. No.
Yep, Henri is one of them.
Okay.
And the other one
What was
is
the other years?
18 and 19.
Come on, I owned both of these. Oh, Cristiano.
That's correct.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure he would have been a lot more, but he seemed to bat for the other side, didn't he?
That's it. It was Messi that was FIFA, and he was kind of pro Evo to begin with, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, yeah. Good. Well, good episode, and we'll have more topics next week.
I had a good time, Wilksy. We should do this again.
Okay, we will. See you later.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.